Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time.
Good morning. How are you doing today? Hope you're doing well. This week, for history class, we're going to finish up talking about Egypt. And there are a few things that I want to hit before we get to the end. Today, I want to spend some time talking about the Egyptian gods. Now, like I've said before, I can't find out exactly how many gods the Egyptians had. But it's between 800 and 2,000. They had loads of gods. They had gods for everything. Gods for everything. Every piece of their life had a god to go with it. There were gods for being born. There were gods for dying. There were gods for getting married. There were gods for the weather. There were gods for the sun, and the moon, and the stars. There were gods for the land. There were gods for the river. There were gods for everything. And it took these people, just worshiping 2,000 gods would be, you'd have to do that all day. You wouldn't be able to get anything done, would you? No, it was a messed up. It's much easier for what we have, right? We only have one God. We know there's only one God. But the Egyptians, they had many gods. And the word for that is, I'm going to put it here at the bottom so you can see it, polytheism. Polytheism. Poly means many, and theism means the worship of God. So polytheism means worshiping many gods. Okay. Let's talk about a few of these gods. Let's take a look at this guy. Doesn't he look handsome? That is Anubis. Anubis. And his job, you remember how we said that the Egyptians, they spent a lot of time worrying about what happens after you die. Well, one of the things that happened, they believed, is that when you died, you went to go see Anubis. And he checked out your heart. He wanted to know how heavy it was. If your heart was light, it meant that you were a good person. You had done many good things in your life. And you could go to their version of heaven. They called it the Field of Reeds. If your heart was heavy, it meant that you were a bad person. And you would get thrown into their version of hell, called the Duat. Okay, Anubis was a very, very important guy. Everybody went to see Anubis after they died, or that's what they thought. This guy here, does he look happy? He should, because that's his name. His name is Happy. He's the god of the Nile River. You guys remember the Nile River? It's the biggest river in the world. Runs through Egypt. And the Egyptians were depended on the Nile River to give them the water that they needed. So Hapi was a very, very important god. And his special animal was the frog. And a lot of paintings and carvings from this time period, there are always frogs around him because there are a lot of frogs that live in the Nile River. And they thought, oh, well, Hapi must really like frogs. The most important of their gods was this guy. His name is Ra. Ra, R-A, Ra. And you see he's got the head of a bird, and that thing on top of his head is the sun. Ra was the sun god. And they believed that he was the king of the gods and the most important of all the gods. That stick he's holding there shows that he's in charge, and that thing in his other hand there is a key. It's the key of life. They believe that Ra gave life. The story is that when Ra was born, the world was just full of oceans. There was no land. But since Ra was the sun god, when he was born, he was so hot that he dried up some of the ocean and made the land. Now this all seems very silly to us, But that's what people believed back then. They explained everything away by their gods. Even their kings were gods. When you became king, you became a god. Their word for that, the word for their god kings was Pharaoh. Pharaoh. I'll have the spelling for that at the end like I usually do. But you've heard me use that word before. The Pharaoh, when you became the king of Egypt, they believed that you became a god. The Egyptians believed that all of their kings, all of their pharaohs, were related to Ra, the sun god. So the Egyptians had many gods. So why am I telling you all this? Well, I do have a reason. I do have a reason for why I'm telling you all this, but I'm not going to tell you today. That reason is going to show up on Thursday. The reason will show up on Thursday. You will see why. But for now, let's go over what we learned today. So here are your questions. Your first question was, hang on a second. There it is. Your first question was, what is the word for having more than one God? And the word for that is polytheism. Polytheism. Having more than one God. Having many gods. Question number 2. Who was the most important god in Egypt? And that was Ra. Ra. He was the sun god. He was the king of the gods. And question number 3. What is the name for the ruler of Egypt that was made into a god? And that name is Pharaoh. Pharaoh. All right. Remember this stuff because it will show up on Thursday. It's not a test, but the story that we talked about on Thursday will make much more sense if you remember what we have here. Okay? So, that's a history lesson for today. So, thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good day.